Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video we're going to wrap another small stone. So in my previous tutorial I used a little teardrop, and I'm doing that again, but this time it's going to be kind of a fancier wrap. We've got quite a bit of wires going on here. We got some beads for decoration, so this is a little bit more difficult, and it's just a fun way to wrap a cabochon that doesn't use a traditional frame that I use in a lot of my videos, where I get the 3 wires and I connect the 3 wires and I shape it around. This is different from that, so I thought it'd be fun to make. And if you want to see how I made this pendant, just keep watching. So the wire that I'm going to use is 20 gauge square copper wire. I don't have very much left here. I buy my wire from riogrande.com. It's dead soft copper. And we're going to start off with one piece of this wire, and the length, let me measure it. Just trying to straighten it out so I can do a proper measurement. It's about 6.5 inches. And then I have a little teardrop agate, and it's about 15 millimeters in size, which is a little bit more than 1/2 inch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our wire roughly in the middle with our pliers, and we're going to bend it so that we have just like a nice little angle there in our wire. And the degree of this angle needs to be a little bit sharp, because this is actually going to be similar to my previous video, just this beginning portion. After that it gets different. So you want your teardrop stone, the bottom like rounded portion of it, to kind of sit here like this, and you have a little space that is formed by this little point that we created. So if you want to just put that down on like a flat table, I'm going to attempt to do it in the air, but you just want to hold it all nice and centered and bend your frame around the stone like this. And then here, where these wires crisscross each other, instead of crisscrossing, we're just going to put a bend in them with our pliers, and then we can kind of reinforce that by just pressing on them this way and lining them up together nicely like this to create this little shape. Now, the next step, if you want to, this is optional, if you have an iron block and a chasing hammer, you can hammer this piece. So if you're choosing to hammer it, you would just hammer it like this on your iron block. I'm just going to do that off camera because it's loud, and it just reinforces this little frame, makes it a little stronger, but it's fine if you don't do this step. So now we're using some half round wire. This is 24 gauge half round wire, and we're using it the rounded side up facing us and the flat side down, touching the other wires, and we are wrapping around to make the bail. So once you've wrapped the little tail end around a few times, you can just trim it off, and then with your pliers you can just press down. So here, this will be the back that has the little wire end, and we're just gonna squish that little wire end down there. And now that we've done that, we kind of got the wire started, we're just gonna turn the pendant and guide the wire to go around like this, and this is going to be our bail. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit longer so it's tall enough to be able to be bent into my bail shape. All right, so I think this is probably tall enough. So this is the side that has the wire end. So we just want to make sure that the other wire end is also here on the same side, and that side will be designated as the back of our pendant. So I'm just pressing everything down here, and then since this is the back, we're going to bend the bail kind of away and then round it this way so that the parts that are wrapped, I'm going to put a little bend in here, end up meeting up together, forming our bail like this. And then once that happens, we can go ahead and separate these wires out. And we're going to try and get these wires to be lined up so they're on top of the other wires there that you see, like this. And we're going to make a connection to connect the two wires together. Now to do that, you just use your half round wire again. Just put it through here and wrap a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times will be adequate. Make sure that the wires are actually nice and tight together. There isn't like a gap between them, and they're also one on top of the other, like this. And then once you've done that, we're just going to trim the wire in such a way that the little wire ends end up here on the inside of the pendant so that they get hidden. So I'm just going to press down on that little wrap. So I ended up with 4 little wraps there, and I'm going to press down on the little wire ends, and then this is the finished result. So now we just have to do the same thing on this other side. So I'm just going to do 4 wraps again so it's symmetrical. I'm trying to do it roughly in the same spot, but I can always move it up or down if it ends up being, you know, slightly higher or lower, so that's not a big deal. All right, so that was 4 little wraps, and now I can trim that wire. And I can just press down on those little wire ends so they go into the inside here of the pendant. And I'm just squishing that down. All right, and now as you can see, they are not lined up very nicely at all. So I'm just pushing this up. So now they are a little bit more symmetrical, and once I have them symmetrical, I'm just going to press down on them one more time just to reinforce them. So now you want to hold the pendant so that the front of the pendant is facing you, so the back of the pendant has these wires, and so this is the front, and you want to take your stone and you want to just hold it in the frame. It's not obviously going to stay put, but just to be able to do this next part, we're going to take the wires that are there coming from the back, and we're just pushing them onto the front here like this. And one of my wires, since when I made this bend I wasn't perfect about getting it right in the middle, so one of my wires is shorter and one is longer, so I trimmed it. That way they are the same length. So now we can do this next part without the stone. We are going to take our round nose pliers and we're going to grab the very end. So there's 2 wire ends there, and I personally like to just kind of squish that little end before curling it, but that's just how I make little swirls. So however you do it, whichever way works best for you, you just want to make a little kind of round swirl. And we're just going to do the same thing to the other wire, trying to make, so I'm just squishing the little end of the wire, and I'm just trying to make a very similar little loop there. I'm just going to use my pliers a little bit to adjust it and to kind of squish it. All right, so those look pretty similar to me. I'm just trying to get them to be there. That looks symmetrical. So if we just grab our stone to see how things have changed, they end up being here on the bottom of our stone. We just want to push our stone a little bit though, because it is domed, so it's going to be like a little bit sticking out here. And then once you have your stone, press on those little loops so they get kind of conformed to the shape of your stone, so like this. Next we're going to add some beads to in between these little loops. So before we do that, I'm just going to take a little piece of my half round wire, the same half round wire that we used for the bail, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach it to one of the loops, and then I'll add my beads, and then I'll attach it to the other loop. So I'm just putting it through the loop. So there isn't a lot of space inside of this little loop, so I can probably fit the wire through and make a wrap, just one wrap. And now I'm gonna have to wrap this wire just not inside of the loop, but just here. But I do want a few more wraps. I don't want it to just be wrapped around once, because it's not going to hold it very well. All right, so we'll just do 3 wraps. I'm just trying to get it to peek out here so I can grab it. Actually, sorry about that, 4 wraps, because I forgot, like now I have this wire, I have to finish it off, so I'm folding it over, and that's going to be a 4th wrap basically. So I'm trimming it, and then I just have a little wire end there, and I'm just gonna push that wire end, pushing the wire end in there to finish off, so it ends up being 4 little wraps. And now our wire is connected and we can add beads to it. So for the beads, you can use whatever beads that you want, but for me, these 2mm little copper beads, they're so tiny that they end up fitting perfectly. If I put 2 of them, they fit really well in this little space. So once I've done that, I'm just gonna put the wire through the loop there and just pull that through. My little beads moved out of place. All right. I'm just pressing down on all of that. And now I'm gonna put it through this loop one more time, just like we did on the other side, keeping everything symmetrical. And now we're just going to do the same number of wraps. So far we just have the 1, and so we're just going to do 3 more so it matches with the other side. Now if you have a hard time getting under there, you can try to just like lift up this wire a little bit so you can slide your half round wire underneath it. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4th will be this last one where we just trim the wire, and we just have to tuck away the little wire end. All right, so once you've done that, I'm just gonna press down on this, make sure it's all nice and even and hasn't moved out of place too much. And now you can take your stone as well and check how it looks with the stone. All right, so that's looking good. So this blocks the bottom portion of our stone from popping out. We still have to block the stone in the back as well as up here to fully trap it in. So we're just gonna grab another piece of that 20 gauge wire. So this is our second piece of wire. And this one ended up being about 8 inches long for me. So a little bit longer than the previous piece. And we are going to put a little bend in it. And this is going to go, so this is the front, so it's gonna go on the back of our piece, and we wanna line up the point with the other point there, just like that. And for attaching it, it'll be a little bit easier this time. You want to cut yourself a nice long piece of the half round wire, just maybe like 7 or 8 inches to work with. And we're going to start, this first part is hard to hold because everything is just like sliding around, but we're going to start by wrapping. So you want this half round wire to kind of go across this way because we're going to use it over here for something else for the other side. So you want it to go through here, like one end of it is going to go through here like this, and we're going to attach the 2 wires on this side by wrapping around probably about 4 times. Let's see how many wraps is that. That's about 4 wraps. So I know it's not lined up perfectly right now because everything's moving around, but we will move it so that it's lined up perfectly afterwards. So I'm just going to trim that, and I'm going to tuck away that little wire end, tuck it away in here. All right, so now we can line this up a little better, push that down. I'm actually going to also slide this down a little bit, and this wire, I want it to go across like this, and I want to use those same tiny little beads, and this time I'm going to put 3 of the beads on there. All right, I'm clearly having trouble here getting these beads on. 1, 2, 3, and you could do 2 little beads and like a larger bead in the middle. Just running out of the larger beads, so I'm just gonna do 3 of the same size beads. And then you want that to go across. So if you need to move this up or down to adjust it accordingly. So mine's good. It kind of reaches across perfectly with those 3 beads. And now I'm just taking this and I'm feeding it through here. And I am pulling on that. So this time we're just using 1 wire to attach versus 2 that we did up here. And if you don't like the beads, you could just do this. You could do like a little wrap here and a little wrap on the other side, and you don't have to have it go across and have beads or anything like that if you don't want to. That is up to you. So I'm just gonna do this so that I have 4 little wraps here, just like on the other side. And then I'm gonna trim that little wire end. I guess this wire was a little too long. I was just afraid it'll be short. but I guess you didn't need your half round wire to be quite that long, so just that little wire end there, we're tucking that in here and just pressing down on all of that, pressing these wires together this way, taking a look. It's looking crooked, so I'm just gonna adjust that. There we go. That looks nice and symmetrical. I'm just gonna get in here and press down on everything to try and kind of lock it in while it's looking all good and symmetrical there. Trying to get this to look good as well up here with the two little beads. All right, let me zoom out a little bit. So now, if we put our stone in here, everything is still good, looking good. So, holding your stone there, flipping over to the back, taking these wires, this wire that we just attached, and just gently and slowly crisscrossing it. You don't want to pull this too tight so that this wire will be visible too much from the front. So you just want to hold it as you bend, crisscrossing these wires on the back like this. And now you want to bend them onto the front like this. Make sure that you're bending them in the same place, so just right above these wraps. That's what I'm doing to make sure that they're even on each side. So now the back is locked, but the front top part is not locked in. So that's what we're going to do with these wires. We're going to lock that part in. So we're going to have them come down, just bend it all the way down, and it's forming like a little crisscross here at the top. Just gonna get in here and adjust it a little bit so it is even on both sides, and it's gonna look like this. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna press here to make sure that this little crisscross isn't gonna move out of place. And then these wires, we're gonna bend them, and they're gonna go to the back, and then they're gonna feed through here. Now you wanna do this portion kind of slowly and carefully, guiding it with your pliers, because you want your sides to be even. So I'm not gonna like tighten this up completely until I do this other side, and I just check that I'm bending it in an even way, and everything is gonna end up looking symmetrical. All right, that's still looking good. Let me look this way. Sometimes upside down things look good, and then you flip it back over and all of a sudden it doesn't. All right. Yep, that's looking good, and our stone is nice and secure. So all that's left to do is just to finish off these little wires here sticking out the bottom. So what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to bend them, and then if you see here, I'll zoom in a second so you can see better. See how they're forming like a loop? So if I just adjust it so that it touches itself, so the wire's going around, and then I'm going to press it, the wire end, into itself like that. So I'm closing up the loop, and same thing on this side, so just do that, trim it off, and just adjust where this little wire end is going and pressing it down getting rid of that wire end and hiding it and attaching the wire. So here's the back. It just has a little crisscross to hold the stone. You can adjust that as needed. There we go. And then the front, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see better. Front has this nice little crisscross up here. If anything is looking off, you can just give it one final little adjustment there. That looks good. And of course we got all of our little beads on the bottom there for decoration. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.